Hello, learners. Welcome to the MOOC course of Digital Humanities Theory and Practice. Before we begin, let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered how researchers study thousands of novels, poems, articles at the same time? Or how they discover pattern in literature that may not be visible through traditional reading alone? This is where digital research method came into play. Digital research methods in literature combine literary analysis with digital tools, technologies to examine text in the innovative ways. Techniques such as text mining, corpus analysis, data visualization help scholars explore themes, language patterns, authorship, and literary trends across large collection of texts. Throughout this session, we will explore how these methods are transforming literary studies and opening new possibilities for the research in the digital age. Now we begin our exploration of digital humanities, an interdisciplinary field that combines the study of human culture, history, language, society, digital technologies, and computational tools. Digital humanities enables us to analyze text, preserve cultural heritage, visualize data, and discover new way of understanding human experiences. Throughout this course, we will examine how technology is transforming humanity research while also considering its social, cultural, and ethical implications. I hope this journey will inspire you to think critically, creatively, and more importantly, collaboratively about the relationship between the humanity and the digital world. This course provides an overview of computational approach that are transforming how we read, analyze, understand the literary text. Now, digital research methods in literature. We will just discuss it in a brief. Digital research method use digital tools, platforms, and data environment for the scholarly inquiry. They combine qualitative, quantitative, and a mixed method approach. Widely used in humanities, social science, education, media, and interdisciplinary studies. Now, as we all know that we have not moved along from the traditional digital overnight. It has been a long and an ongoing process. Traditional literary scholarship relies on closing reading and qualitative analysis. The digital turn has expanded these horizons, enabling a scholar to interrogate the vast corpora, visualize patterns, and ask questions at a scale which were previously impossible. Traditional literary scholarships relied on the manual close reading of individual text, which had limiting scalability. Of course, obviously, as we all know that the scalability was very limited in traditional literary scholarship. I can simply go to one book, read that, and then move on to another book, which will take a lot of time. If I'm an ardent speaker, ardent reader, only then, even if I'm an ardent reader, it will take a lot of time for me to cover up a book, to finish a book, and then move on to the next book. But the digitization of millions of texts since the 1990s has enabled new form of large-scale inquiry. Digital methods allow researchers to identify patterns invisible to the unaided human reader. Now, computational approaches complement rather than replace qualitative interpretation. Yes, as we all know that when we talk about computational stylistics or stylometry, it talks about or it focuses on the number of frequency of words. For example, how many times that number have occurred in a text. So basically, it is something which is quantification in of words. So we quantify the words rather than qualitative interpretation. Now, the term digital humanities formalize interdisciplinary collaboration between literature, linguistic, and computer science. We are very much well aware of the milestones that are there. Project Gutenberg in 1971, Hathi Trust 2008, Gestor for data research, Google Books for Ngram Viewer, which was started in 2010, etc. Now, digital augmentation, the use of technologies to enhance, extend, or improve human capabilities, process experiences, or decision making rather than completely replacing them. One important thing is where people generally get confused is the idea that is augmentation, not automation. Technology work alongside people to help them perform tasks very efficiently or more effectively. Now, computational tools, large data sets, algorithmic analysis that are involved there. It can detect linguistic patterns and theme across large corpora. It can visualize relationship between authors, characters, and concepts. Now, the next is hybrid scholarship. Now, hybrid scholarship, as the name itself is self-explanatory, that we are amalgamating your traditional method and the digital augmentation. So, this approach basically integrates both the approaches for richer and the rigorous insights. Now, digital archiving and digitization. First of all, the question arises, why do we need this? Because of the fact that digitization gives access to rare manuscripts and out of print works, while digital archives enable new forms of scholarly inquiry across centuries of literary productions. Like, for example, preservation. High resolution imaging and metadata standard ensure long term access to fragile materials. The next could be access. Platforms like HathiTrust, Internet Archive, Project Gutenberg, they all provide global access. You can sit at this part of the globe and reach or get access to another part of the globe. Then we have annotation, which is also known as TEI, which primarily stands for the Text Encoding Initiative, which is a widely used academic standard for representing text in digital format. Encoding and collaborative platform enable rich, layered scholarly annotation. Now, for example, Project Gutenberg. Now, this is one of the way of this is one of the tools of or one of the ways of digital archiving. Where we have the first one is Project Gutenberg. Now, Project Gutenberg is a bibliographic database that has 70,000 plus free ebooks in public domain literary text, which is pivotal for early digital humanities corpus work. The another could be Oxford Text Archive. Now, it is a peer-reviewed electronic text in multiple languages, rich metadata, and text encoding initiative encoding. Now, another one that we have is Gestor, for example. Now, it accesses data sets of academic journal articles for bibliometric and the citation analysis. And this is one of the, I think, the most common tool that is generally used. Not exactly, yeah, of course, it's the most common tools that generally students in the universities or in the colleges, they access to this Gestor in the most effective manner. Then we have another one that is HathiTrust. It's a digital library that has 70 million plus volumes, full text search, machine readable data portal for researchers. Amazing. Now, the Corpus of Historical American English, another digital archiving. It has 400 million plus words and tracks, and it dates back from 1810 to 2009. Tracks lexical, syntactical, and the semantic changes over time in a particular text or over a period of time. Now we have another digital archiving is ESTC or EEBO, or we can say ECCO. They stand for English Short Title Catalog. It's a comprehensive bibliography database that records the work printed in English speaking region from 1473 to 1800. Can you think of this? This is so amazing. This is how digital humanity always amaze us. Early English books online, 18th century collection online. So these are ECCO and EEBO. Now, network analysis in literature. What exactly network analysis and what does it do actually? Now, network analysis maps the relationship between the characters, the author, the text, or the ideas as nodes and edges, revealing a structural pattern in literary systems. Like we have Cytoscape, Network X, uh, Gephi. These are the general network analysis tools that we generally use. Now, network analysis treats literary text as system of relationships. Nodes represent characters, text, or concepts, and edges represent interaction, citation, or co-occurrences. Now, there is something called social network analysis. Now, social network analysis quantify the character roles and the plot structure. It matrices like degree centrality between clustering. Now, the next is your intertextuality. Now, intertextuality tracks citations, allusion, and source relationship across literary traditions. For example, uh, Eliot's Wasteland, right? So now the Wasteland has allusion from the Bible. It has allusions from Dante Gabriel Rossetti. It has allusions from from Shakespeare himself, right? So intertextuality is how your text has references outside the text. So how they are related to each other. So these tools help us in identifying those relationships. Sometimes these relationship, these allusions, these references are not we are not able to identify with our naked eye, but with the help of these tools we can easily identify things that are not identifiable through our naked eyes. Now the next is character networks. Now character network is simply it represents a network or a graph in which characters are treated as nodes and their relationship or interactions are represented as connections or edges, as we discussed earlier. It maps dialogues and interaction in the novels. Who speak to whom and how often the character is speaking to other characters. So the characters in the story are called the nodes and the relationship between the character is known as the edges. Right. So next one is social networks. Now the social network is simply it is used to understand how people or group are connected and how these connections influence behavior, information, flow and power and social structures. Another one in the network analysis in literature is genre network. Now genre network as the name itself suggests it focuses on the genre itself. Instead of focusing on the people or characters, the nodes are genres, and the connections show how those genres are related. Genre networks are commonly used in digital humanities, literary studies to explore how genre evolve, overlap, sometimes influence one another. Now, for example, here the characters are not the nodes, but nodes are genre. Unlike your character network, where the characters are where the characters were treated as nodes and connections were treated as the edges. Here we have nodes are the genre and edges are the relationship between the genre. Like for example, if we look at, I can think of an example like the Animal Farm. Now the novel Animal Farm, if we look at the novel or if we read the novel, it is a dystopian novel, but it's also a political allegory, right? So genres sometimes overlap. Like for example, The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. It is a fantasy, right? As well as it's a dystopian fiction. So here the genre is itself is repeating or overlapping in the text. So here in this genre network, we need to remember this thing that nodes are genre and edges are relationship between the genre. Whereas in the character one, whereas in the character network, the characters are treated as nodes and the relationship or the connection, sorry, are treated as the edges. Now the last one that we have in the network analysis is the citation network, and it is also known as the scholarly influence mapping. Now, a citation network is a type of a network used in the network analysis. The nodes are document such as books, articles, paper, patents, websites, and the edges represents the citation from one document to another. It helps researcher understand how knowledge is created, shared, and developed over time. So basically, a schema is involved. So it is based on the schematic knowledge that we have. The previous knowledge that we have, the researcher has, how does it he understand how knowledge is created through the previous knowledge, how knowledge is being shared, and how it is getting developed over a period of time. Like for example, co-citation network. Now two documents are linked because they are cited together by the documents. Or another type of citation network is known as the bibliographical coupling, where two documents are linked because they cite the same sources. Now we need to remember two things. In citation network, there are number of methods that we have, or there are number of networks that we have, but the most important or the major one are the co-citation network, where two documents are linked because they are cited together by another document. Or bibliographic coupling means two documents are linked because they cite the same sources. Now, for these network analysis, the tools that we have are, for example, the first one that we have is uh, Jiffy. It's an open source graph visualization. It helps in creating graphs widely used for literary character networks. Another tool for that we have is Network X. It's a programmatic graph analysis. It integrates with natural language processing pipelines for automated extraction from text. Another tool that we have is Palladio. Palladio is a browser-based humanities network tool. It is excellent for correspondence and the relation historical data. Sometimes case studies like Shakespeare's Tragic Social Network, right? Sometimes we do have a text also. Text in itself, of course, as it's a very traditional method. Multiple Shakespearean tragedies, for example, right? Finding contrary to the traditional view that tragedy produce social fragmentation to the plays often create dense social network even during the moment of disorders. Now, these examples show how digital method move beyond traditional close reading to reveal patterns, structures, and relationships that are difficult to detect through reading alone. Now, another method is known as the computational stylistics, or it is also known as the stylometry. I mean, we can use any of the names, but it is generally in the linguistics or in digital humanities, it is known as the computational stylistics. Now, computational stylistics is the study of literary style using computer-based methods and statistical analysis. It examines features such as frequency, sentence length, vocabulary richness, punctuation patterns, and the grammatical structure to identify stylistical characteristics of texts. By analyzing large amount of textual data, computational stylistics help researchers compare authors, genre, periods, and literary movements in a way that would be difficult through manual reading alone. For example, a researcher may use a computational stylistics to compare the writing style of Jane Austen and Charles Dickens by examining by the use of their common words, sentence structure, and sometimes narrative techniques. Then another one is known as in the same thing we have computational stylistics and the authorship attribution. Authorship attribution is the process of determining the likely author of a text by analyzing its linguistic and the stylistical feature. It's a major application of the computational stylistics. Using stylistic models or using statistical models and the machine learning techniques, researchers compare an anonymous and a disputed text with the text of known authors to identify the most probable writer. Like, for example, one famous authorship attribution study examined the federal papers to determine whether disputed essays were written by Alexander Hamilton or James Madison. Statistical analysis of word usage strongly supported Madison's authorship for several disputed essays. Now, in simple terms, we can say that computational statistics uses computers to study and measure writing style. Authorship attribution is uses those stylistics measurement to identify who wrote a text. So basically, authorship attribution gives credit to the author, whereas computational linguists stylistics simply tells or it uses computer to study and measure the writing styles. So it talks about only style, but authorship attribution gives attribute or the credit to the original author, or sometimes the ghostwriter or the co-author, or anyone who is writing with the hidden name or hidden pen. Now, the relationship between these two. Authorship attribution is one of the most important application of computational stylistics. The former answers who wrote this, while the latter studies how is this written, what makes the author's style unique. Now, if we look at the in the domain of linguistics, stylistics, for example, how stylistics is different from literary criticism, right? Literary criticism talks about what is there, what is written over there, but stylistics talks about how is it written. So the same thing is being applied here, where it says that authorship attribution is one of the most important application of computational statistics. The former answers who wrote this, and the latter studies how is this written and what makes this author unique. Now, where do we use that, or what are the applications of these two things, of these computational stylistics and authorship attribution? Now, it helps us in detecting the ghostwriting and the collaborative authorship. Now, if for people who don't know, the ghostwriting is simply the practice of writing content that is officially credited to someone else. The apt example is speeches. For example, these days, or not just these days, but it has been done in the past. It has been doing in the, it has been done in the past also, that for political leaders, there are people who used to write speeches for them. So there, the people who write speeches are the actual writer of the speech, but they are being delivered by somebody else. So that is an example of ghostwriting. So here, the one who is performing that, the one who is delivering that, is not the actual writer. So the one who is the actual writer is known as the ghostwriter. So this authorship attribution sometimes helps us in detecting the ghostwriter and the collaborative authorship. It also helps in identifying stylistic evolution across an author's career. So, for example, if I started in 2010 in my BA, in my undergraduation, from that point to this point, of course, one person must have achieved certain peculiarities, that there are certain peculiarities that are confined to him, that are restricted to him only, or one has a style of writing. From that point to this point, how far the one has gone in the field of writing. It also identifies that evolution, that is stylistical evolution of the author's career. Now, it also helps in distinguishing translated text from the original text, or the translated text from the, yes, of course, from the original text. Now, one of the most important use of computational stylistics or authorship attribution is that it helps in forensic linguistics by using quantitative and computational methods to analyze writing styles and identify linguistic patterns that may reveal information about an author, authenticity, and the authorship. Or, in simple terms, we can say it answers the questions such as who wrote this text, Probably, for example, there is an investigation going on, and the police gets hold of a suicidal note. Now, who wrote the note? Maybe it is actually written by the person who committed suicide, or is it written by the murderer? Or any, if it is a murderer, maybe it is written by some murderer. So it helps in identifying who is the actual writer of this particular suicide note. So it helps in forensic linguistics. Or did the same person write multiple documents, or a document is genuine or forged? So it helps us in identifying such things. Now, there are so many computational statistical tools or author attributional tools. For example, Burroughs Delta. It compares the most frequent words or profiles between the text. It is widely used for authorship attribution since 2002. Principal component analysis as another tool. It reduces high dimensional stylometric data to visualizable cluster using variance decomposition. Another tool is known as rolling stylometry. Rolling stylometry analyzes style changes within a single text, detecting the co-authored section or editorial interventions. Uh, Among all of the list, another tool that I can think of is Stylo. It is simply an open source toolkit by Eder and the Rybicki and Questmont, the industry standard for stylometric analysis. Now, another thing that is there in in the digital method is distant reading. Now, distant reading is a digital humanities approach introduced by Franco Moretti. Instead of closely reading of individual texts, researchers analyze large collection of literary work using computational tools, statistics, and data visualization. The goal is to identify broad patterns, trends, and structure that may not be visible through traditional close reading. For example, analyzing thousands of novels to track the rise and the decline of particular genre, themes, or the character types over time. Now, the key idea here is that it focuses on the pattern across many texts than detailed interpretation of a single text. Then another technique is known as the macroanalysis. Macroanalysis is a related concept developed by Matthew L. Jockers. It applies large-scale quantitative analysis to literary corpora to study literary history, authorship, and a genre development and cultural trends. While distant reading is a broader methodology, macroanalysis often refers to the distant reading is a broader method. Macroanalysis is while distant reading is a broader methodology. Macroanalysis often refers to the specific use of data mining and statistical techniques to uncover pattern in the large data set of text. For example, examining thousands of 19th century novel to analyze how themes such as gender, emotion, or social class change over a period of time. Again, the key idea here is use of computational methods and big data to understand literature at a large scale. Now, another techniques or another digital research method is known as natural language processing for literary analysis. Natural language processing for literary analysis refers to the use of computational techniques to analyze, interpret, and extract meaning from literary text. NLP, which is often, of course, used as a short form, enables researchers to process large collection of novels, poems, plays, and other texts by identifying patterns in language, themes, emotion, characters, and narrative structures. Common natural language processing techniques in literary studies includes tokenization, parts of speech tagging, named identity recognition, sentiment analysis, topic modeling, and text classification. These methods help scholars explore questions about authorship, styles, genre, character relationships, and thematic development on a scale that would be difficult through traditional close reading alone. For example, NLP can be used to trace themes across hundred of novels, analyze emotional patterns in Shakespeare's play, or map interaction among characters in a literary work. Now, within the natural process, within the NLP, we have named identity recognition. Named identity recognition identifies people, places, organizations, and data in text. It enables character extraction, geographical mapping, and timeline analysis. Dep- then, in another NLP technique is dependency parsing. Now, dependency parsing maps grammatical relationship between words, reveals syntactic complexity, and sentence structure patterns across text or periods. Then another technique is sentiment and emotion analysis. It classifies text polarity, whether it is positive or negative, or emotions, the type of emotions that we have of joy, fear, anger. It is used to map narratives, arcs, and character mood trajectories. Then another NLP is technique. NLP technique is parts of speech tagging. It labels word as noun, verb, adjective, and it underpins syntactic analysis, stylometric profiling, and grammatical pattern studies. Then another technique is also known as the conference resolution among all the NLP. It simply tracks where different expressions refer to the same entity. For example, Elizabeth, she, Miss Bennet, critical for character tracking. So for Elizabeth, the person has used she, right? So it tracks different expressions refer to the same entity. Then machine translation and OCR post correction. Of course, this is the one which is the most common. It simply enables cross-linguistic analysis or OCR correction pipelines, cleans historical digitized text for downstream natural language processing. Now, criticism of course, everything has its pros and cons, and there are a number of critiques that have criticized the digital methods in research. For example, the very first propound critique is Nanzida. Nazida argues computational results lack literary significance. The field debates rigor, reproducibility, and interpretive validity. That she means to say that there are times where these computational or stylometry or computational stylistics is not able to get the right interpretation, because as a reader, as a human being, I come from my own background. I have my political background, my educational background, my financial background. All of my background are completely different and different from some other person. So every person has its own interpretation. So whether this interpretation that I am getting right now, or this machine or computational stylist is giving me, whether it is validated or not, this validation is very important and which is unable to achieve. Then another criticism is reduction of literary styles to numbers. One of the most common criticism is that the computational treats style as a collection of measurable features, quantifying it is in a quantification form of quantification. For example, word frequency, sentence length, function word usage. Critics argue that literary style is much richer than these stylistic indicators, and they include tone, irony, symbolism, narrative voice, sometimes cultural meaning, so on and so forth. Another criticism of stylometry is dependence on quantifiable features. Like, for example, computational methods work best with the feature that can be counted and measured. As a result, subtle aspect of writing may be ignored. For example, metaphor, ambiguity, humor, etc. These all are missing because they are our writing is very much dependent on them. That makes our writing more beautiful. Another criticism is context is often underrepresented. Underrepresented. Now, it is generally said a text is lifeless unless a context is applied upon or it is acted upon that text, right? So, context is something which is nowhere in the stylometry. Writing style can vary depending on genre, audience, historical period. A person's style in a formal report may differ substantially from the style in a private correspondence. So when the context gets changed, the writing style also gets changed. So these computational stylistics or stylometry does not take consideration of the context. Then another criticism could be, or another challenge of this thing, is the problem with authorship attribution. Yes, in authorship studies, critique points out that statistical similarity does not prove authorship. Different authors can exhibit similar stylistic patterns. The same author can write differently across situations. I can write in a different situation in a different manner, or the same author can write, yes, in a various situations differently. Therefore, the computational evidences is often probabilistic rather than definitive. So here we do have these tools that are their digital humanity platform tools. So these all are the tools that we have. Like for example, for text analysis, we have this Voint tool, AntConc freeware. We have NLTK. For stylometry, we have Burrows, which we have already discussed. We have GGAP Java. We have Signature Online. For network visualization, we have Giphy. We have Pelagio that we have already discussed, and raw graphs. For topic modeling, we have LDA, which is latent, Dirichlet, and allocation. For annotation, we have Oxygen XML editor, TEI encoding and validation, CATMA, CATMA, hypothesis open web annotation and collaborative reading. Then for data and workflows, I'm sorry, I got this wrong. For that, we have Jupyter Notebook, we have IIF Image API, we have OpenRefine. So these are the digital humanities platform and tools. Now, the future of digital research method in literary studies is closely tied to advances in the artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, natural language processing. These technologies will enable researchers to analyze increasingly large and diverse collection of text, uncover complex patterns, and generate new insights from literature, culture, and the language. Emerging tools will facilitate multilingual analysis and automated manuscript transcription, sophisticated sentiments and narrative analysis, and interactive visualization of literary network. The digital archive and open access database will further expand research opportunities, making literary resources more accessible worldwide. As these methods evolve, scholars will also need to address the important ethical issues related to data privacy, algorithmic bias, and as these methods evolve, scholars will also need to address important ethical issues related to privacy, algorithmic bias, and the responsible use of AI. Ultimately, digital research method will complement rather than replacing traditional literary analysis, creating new possibilities for interdisciplinary and collaborative research. Now, digital methods are not replacing close reading, which is a myth among the learners sometimes, that it will replace the close reading. No, it's not replacing the close reading, but they are expanding the scholar's toolkit. The future lies in thoughtful integration using computational scale to ask new questions while retaining the interpretive depth that defines literary study. So, with this, we come to an end of this session or this lecture one. Thank you for joining me for this lecture. Thank you so much.